On a freezing night, his last gift sparked a miracle no one expected. The wind howled through the empty streets like a warning no one was listening to. Snow fell in thick, relentless sheets, covering everything in a cold silence that felt heavier than the storm itself. It was one of those nights in Chicago when even the brave chose to stay indoors. But not everyone had that choice. Under a flickering streetlight, on a cracked sidewalk dusted with snow, sat a man no one noticed anymore. His name was Daniel. Once years ago, Daniel had a life, a warm apartment, a steady job, a daughter whose laughter used to echo through his days. But life had a way of unraveling things slowly. Then all at once, a layoff turned into months of searching. Bills piled up. His wife left, taking their daughter with her, promising it was temporary. It never was. Now, all that remained of his old life were fading memories and a worn photograph, tucked safely in his coat pocket. Daniel pulled his coat tighter around himself, though it barely helped. The cold cut through the fabric like it wasn't even there. His hands trembled, not just from the freezing air, but from hunger. He hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. Tonight, though, he had something. In his hand, wrapped carefully in crumpled brown paper, was a sandwich. It wasn't much, just bread, a thin layer of meat, and a little cheese, but to him, it was everything. He had gotten it from a small shelter earlier that evening, saving it instead of eating it right away. Just a little longer, he had told himself. Find somewhere warmer, then eat. But the night had other plans. As Daniel lifted the sandwich toward his mouth, ready to finally take a bite, he heard something, a soft sound. Not the wind, not footsteps, a whimper. He froze. At first, he thought he imagined it. The cold did strange things to your mind, but then it came again, faint, trembling, and unmistakably human. Daniel slowly turned his head. Across the street, near the entrance of a closed convenience store, he saw a small figure curled up against the wall, a child. His heart dropped. Without thinking, Daniel stood up, his stiff legs protesting as he crossed the icy street. The snow crunched beneath his worn boots, each step heavy but urgent. As he got closer, he saw her clearly. She couldn't have been older than 8. She wore a bright red hooded jacket, now dusted with snow, but it was too thin for a night like this. Her hands were bare, her cheeks flushed from the cold, and her eyes, those wide, frightened eyes, met his with a mix of fear and exhaustion. Hey, it's okay, Daniel said gently, kneeling down despite the freezing ground. I'm not gonna hurt you. The girl didn't respond right away. She just stared at him, shivering. What's your name? He asked softly. Lily, she whispered after a moment, her voice barely audible. Lily? Daniel repeated, offering a small, reassuring smile. That's a beautiful name. She looked down, hugging herself tighter. Where are your parents? He asked. No answer. Just silence. Daniel's chest tightened. He had seen enough of the world to understand what that silence meant. He glanced around. The streets were empty. No cars, no people. Just the storm. Then he looked back at Lily. Her lips were pale. Her body trembled uncontrollably. She was freezing. Without hesitation, Daniel removed his gloves, thin and worn, but better than nothing, and gently slipped them onto her hands. They're a bit big, he said softly, but they'll help. Lily looked at her hands, then back at him. Her eyes softened just a little. Then her gaze dropped to what he was holding, the sandwich. Daniel followed her eyes. For a moment, time seemed to stop. His stomach growled painfully, as if reminding him of what he was about to give up. That sandwich wasn't just food. It was survival. It was warmth. It was the difference between making it through the night or not. He hesitated, just for a second. Then he looked at Lily again, at her trembling lips, at the way she tried to hide her hunger. And suddenly the choice wasn't hard anymore. Daniel slowly unwrapped the sandwich and held it out to her. Here, he said gently. You need this more than I do. Lily's eyes widened. No, I can't. It's okay, Daniel interrupted, his voice firm but kind. Go on. She stared at the sandwich, then at him, as if she didn't quite believe it was real. Take it, he encouraged softly. With shaking hands, she reached out and took it. For a moment, she just held it, like it was something precious. Then carefully, she took a bite. Tears filled her eyes instantly, not from the cold, but from something deeper. Daniel watched quietly, a faint smile forming on his face despite the hunger gnawing at him. There was something warm about seeing her eat, something that made the cold feel a little less cruel. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, chewing slowly. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel shrugged lightly. "It's just a sandwich." But they both knew it was more than that. As Lily ate, the wind seemed to soften just a little, and for a brief moment the world didn't feel so harsh. But that moment didn't last long. In the distance, the sound of a car broke the silence. Headlights appeared through the falling snow, growing brighter as they approached. Daniel instinctively shielded his eyes. The car slowed, then stopped. It was a sleek black SUV, far too expensive for this part of town. The door opened. A woman stepped out wrapped in a heavy coat, her expression tense and searching. "Lily!" The girl froze. "Mom!" she cried, her voice breaking as she ran toward her. The woman dropped to her knees, pulling Lily into a tight embrace. "Oh my God! Where did you go?" "I've been looking everywhere. I got lost," Lily sobbed. "I was so cold." The woman held her close, then pulled back slightly, checking her face, her hands. That's when she noticed the gloves and the sandwich. Her eyes shifted to Daniel. He was still kneeling there, a few feet away, watching quietly. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then the woman stood up and walked toward him. "Was that you?" she asked, her voice softer now. Daniel shrugged. She looked like she needed help. The woman looked at him more closely now, the worn coat, the tired eyes, the way he tried to hide his shivering. "You gave her your food?" she asked. "It's not a big deal," Daniel said, brushing it off. "She needed it." The woman didn't respond immediately. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out something. "Money." "Please," she said, holding it out. "Take this." Daniel shook his head. "No, it's okay." "Please," she insisted. "You helped my daughter." "Let me help you." He hesitated, then gently pushed her hand back. "She's safe." "That's enough." The woman stared at him, surprised. In a world where everyone seemed to want something, this man wanted nothing. She slowly lowered her hand. "What's your name?" she asked. "Daniel." She nodded. "Daniel, thank you." He gave a small nod in return. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the falling snow. That should have been the end of it. Just another quiet act of kindness, lost in a world too busy to notice. But sometimes, the smallest moments create the biggest changes. The next morning, something unexpected happened. A photo taken from a distance. A homeless man giving his last sandwich to a little girl in the snow. It had been captured by a passerby and posted online. Within hours, it spread. Thousands of shares, millions of views. People couldn't stop talking about it. "Who is he? Where can we find him?" This man gave everything he had. The story touched hearts across the country. And then, someone recognized him, the woman from that night. She stepped forward, shared the story, and made a promise. "We're going to find him," she said, "and we're going to help him." Days later, they did. Daniel was found near the same streetlight where it all began. But this time, he wasn't invisible. This time, people saw him. And what started with a single sandwich turned into something no one expected. A home, a job, a second chance. And months later, on a warm spring afternoon, Daniel stood in a small park, watching Lily laugh as she ran through the grass. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the old photograph of his daughter. For the first time in years, he smiled without sadness, because on a freezing night when he had nothing left to give, he gave anyway, and somehow that changed everything.